Now, most people tend to think that to improve your productivity, you need to work harder, you need to have a to-do list the size of a 16th century scroll, or stay awake so much to the point where you have eye sacs right under your eyes. But what if I told you that there was another way? A better way. 7 small changes, in fact, that you could implement today that will completely improve your productivity forever. Now, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, distracted, and feeling like a sack of potatoes all the time, this video was made for you. And the first on this list is having a distraction list. I'm sure, like, Bernard, what do you mean by a distraction list? Have you ever noticed that the times where you are most distracted are usually the times where you decide not to have any distractions? Like, you easily have random thoughts like what you're going to eat in a couple of hours, or if you switched off the lights in your bathroom, or the fact that you need to respond to your landlord that sent you a random message out of the blue. Now, instead of actually acting on these impulses immediately, you can actually try to incorporate the distraction list. Now, this is basically when the thought actually goes into your mind, you just write it down and keep it away, and so you can actually focus on things that are more important to you. Now, why is this little trick really important? According to a study done by Baumeister and Tierney in 2011, now these are psychologists, they actually had a study done on people that have a high level of self-discipline and people that have a low level of self-discipline. And what they discovered was that people with seemingly high levels of discipline were actually those that usually put themselves in situations where they did not even need to exert self-discipline. They actually tended to avoid situations where they needed to exercise their self-discipline. While people that tended to have the lowest levels of self-discipline were actually those that always loved to put themselves in situations where they needed to actually exercise the most amount of self-discipline. Now, how does this relate to having a distraction list? Now, when you have a distraction list, what you are actually doing is by writing down those impulsive thoughts, you're actually putting yourself in a situation where you can avoid those thoughts to begin with, because you've kind of like created an avenue where you can dump those thoughts. So when you are actually focusing on what you need to do, you are not in a situation where you are trying to resist the urges to actually look at your phone to respond to that message or go to switch off your bathroom lights, as the case may be. Now, another thing is by actually having good sleep hygiene. Now, the fact remains that no matter what productivity hack you want to use or tip you want to do, they mean nothing when you do not have enough energy to do them, because your energy is your fuel for productivity. Now, there are actually a lot of studies that actually explains in detail how your sleep affects productivity, but there was one study that stood out to me, and that was one that was carried out by the website called Neurosciences, titled "The Consequences of Sleep Deprivation on Cognitive Performance." Now, what I found interesting about this article is that chronic sleep deprivation actually affects a lot of things, a vast majority of your cognitive functions, like your attention, your memory, your judgment, your decision making, and actually your overall cognitive abilities in whole. And for something you can relate to, having brain fog all the time. Now, having good sleep hygiene actually ensures that these factors do not really affect your productivity. Now, one of the ways that you can actually ensure that you have good sleep hygiene is by sleeping at the same time regularly, even on weekends, limiting your mobile phone use right before you go to bed, and monitoring your caffeine and alcohol intake, because these things actually affect your ability to actually go to bed. Now, the next tip is limit context switching. Now, most people tend to think that multitasking is a superpower. I mean, you can do 2 things at the same time in a fairly okay manner, but the question you should ask yourself is, what is the cost of doing this? Now, according to a study done by the American Psychological Association, what they discovered was that multitasking, or aka task switching, because when you're multitasking, you are not simultaneously doing the same thing at the same time, you are actually switching your attention between multiple things in rapid succession. And what they discovered was task switching actually drastically reduced your productivity by about 40%. And the reason for this huge decrease in productivity is because of something called attention residue. Now, what is attention residue? Attention residue is basically when the thoughts you have from an already completed task lingers on while you are carrying on a new task. And the really interesting thing about this is that this attention residue still has an effect on every single thing you switch your attention on. It could be as little as responding to a message on WhatsApp to actually switching your attention to a big project. This phenomenon will still have an effect regardless of whatever you switch your attention to. So it then begs the question, how do you actually fix this? Now, a good way to do this is by actually engaging in a practice called focus blocks of time. Now, this is whereby for a particular time period every single day, you schedule time where you focus on just one thing for that period of time. And the thing is that you don't really even need to start with like 5 hours of focus time. You can actually start gradually and over time work your way up to the high numbers. You can start with, let's say, 30 minutes of focus time once a day. And over time, you build up from 30 minutes once a day to 30 minutes twice a day to 2 hours multiple times in a day. Your focus is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more you are able to lift. Another way to actually fight against this residue is by actually taking walks. Now, what walks help you to do is that they help you to reset your brain and kind of like clears your mind. So when you actually go into the next activity, you are actually refreshed and ready to tackle that activity. Another thing you could try is using the Parkinson's law. Now, what is Parkinson's law? Parkinson's law basically states that work expands to fill the amount of time allotted to it. Now, if you decide that you're going to spend 2 hours to clear your email, you would spend 2 hours clearing your email. But if you decide you're going to spend 30 minutes clearing your email, you would actually look for ways to make your processes more efficient to actually hit 30 minutes. Now, context switching is a really deceptive behavior because you think you're actually being productive, while in reality, studies have actually shown that you actually spend more time doing the tasks that you multitask compared to when you actually focus single-handedly on these tasks, and you actually produce lower quality work when you multitask. Now, the next tip is by taking breaks. Now, some people tend to see breaks as being lazy or not being as productive as you possibly could be. Now, I'm not saying that you should work for 30 minutes and take a break for like 2 hours. No, that is a bit lazy. But what I'm talking about is when you decide to take little short breaks, they actually help you to fight against mental fatigue and allows you to actually maintain a high level of focus for longer while still maintaining your quality of work. Now, a good way to actually do this is by doing something called Pomodoro Technique. Now, what is the Pomodoro Technique? Now, the Pomodoro Technique basically works like this. You have a 25-minute time window of focused work and you have a 5-minute break, essentially meaning that one Pomodoro will actually take 30 minutes of time. Why this technique is actually quite interesting is because the more you build your focus, you can actually increase your focus block and also increase your breaks. There are variations. If you feel like you like to focus longer, you can actually have a 50-minute block of focus time followed by a 10-minute break. It just depends on what works for you. Now, the next point in this video is by saying no more often. Now, the fact of the matter remains is that for every yes you say to one thing, you are inevitably saying no to another thing, whether you know about it or not. And there's a really interesting quote by Peter Drucker which goes like this: "Nothing is less productive than to make more efficient what should not be done at all." Most times, we tend to say yes to things that are really not the best uses of our time. They could be a good use of time, but they are actually still not the best use of our time. And when we say yes to the good, we are actually saying no to the best. Now, saying no regularly and unapologetically protects your time, your energy, and also your resources. Things that may not really move the needle as forward as something more important. Now, the next tip is by using something called the Pareto principle. Now, what is the Pareto principle? Now, in the late 19th century, an Italian economist called Vilfredo Pareto discovered that 20% of the inhabitants in Italy owned 80% of the land. Now, back then, this was a really huge discovery. And what he found out also was that this was not only limited to land. This principle also applied to farming. 80% of the produce was only produced by 20% of the crops, even down to wealth disparities. 20% of the population owned 80% of the wealth. This rule became so reliable to the point now where it has actually become a principle. In any system, 80% of the result of that system would be produced by 20% of the inputs. Now, with this principle in mind, it begs the question, what is the 20% that you're currently doing that will produce the 80% of your results? When you actually practice the Pareto principle, you actually try to look for the 20% that use the 80% and focus more on that 20%, and maybe once in a while touch the 80% that only produces the remaining 20%. But the fact remains, when you hone into the important 20%, your productivity will inevitably not remain the same again. The next point in this video is using AI. Now, we are blessed to be living in a time where we have one of the biggest technological revolutions of the 21st century. You literally have in your pocket an assistant that works for you 24/7 and that literally has all the knowledge that has been in existence since humans began to write. And the thing is that there are countless AI tools that can actually help you improve or make better whatever task you are working on, like from ChatGPT to DeepSeek all the way to Otter. I strongly believe that AI will not be able to replace humans completely, but humans that have found a way to leverage AI will inevitably outperform those who don't. So, if you can beat them, why don't you join them? Our wisdom nugget for the week: keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. And guys, if you love this video, I really think you're going to like this video about 7 habits that are keeping you lazy and how you can break them. And guys, if any points resonated with you, I would love to see what you think about it in the comment section. And guys, if you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't, so you can get more videos like this one. And like always guys, remember to always keep it real. Bye guys.